Cents Per Mile, featuring Charles Gracie, Paul Gibson, and Josh Haynes. Everyone knows the trucking industry has issues, but most people are afraid to talk about it.
Someone's got to do it.
With loads of recruiting and marketing experience and backed by the largest driver audience in the world, we deliver carriers the driver perspective, find solutions, and help make sense make sense.
Thank you for tuning in to Cents Per Mile. I'm your host, Charles Gracie.
And I'm your co-host, Paul Gibson. What are we talking about today, Charles?
We're talking about dispatch, failures. I mean, what can we do better? What's that look like from the driver and the carrier's perspective?
Dispatch? Oh, that is, I feel like that's the one job in the industry we haven't ever really talked about fully for an episode.
Until now.
Yeah, we've talked about executives. We've talked about insurance. We've talked about all kinds of things. I guess maybe not payroll, but dispatch. Dispatch is a...
It could be a disaster, could be a point of friction, and it can be done right. And it can also be done by AI. We're going to dive into it.
I think it is probably one of the most biggest undervalued make or break points for the driver experience. But before we get into that, it's time to do the things we do every week. So we are on Apple Music. We are on Amazon Music. We're on Spotify. We're on YouTube. We're everywhere you get your podcasts. So if you're out there listening, consuming our content, if you could like, subscribe, rate, and that helps push us out, get us some more momentum so we can do some cool stuff. You can also
go to centspermilepodcast.com. You can suggest to be a guest, a sponsor, or even a topic for us to discuss.
Sponsors. Speaking of sponsors, who's our sponsor today, Charles?
TAFS. Factoring can be fun. Check them out at TAFS.com.
Yep, TAFS. Shout out to my dudes. Fun guys. If you're ever out at a conference, hang around them. You're going to have a good time, and you're actually going to learn a lot about finances and trucking. But anyway, that being said, it is time for the news.
All right, we're talking the news, and we've talked about tariffs, we've talked about things going up, things going down, all around, changing. I'm going to change it up. We're going to talk trucking news today. So I'm going to grab the wheel. We're taking this down the road. Grocery hauling truckers vote to strike over autonomous semi-truck concerns. This article was by CDLLife, and it says a North Texas Teamsters Union representing truckers has voted to strike over autonomous semi-truck concerns and fair benefits. The Teamsters local union 745 represents nearly 100 truck drivers working in Albertsons in Dallas-Fort Worth area, which is approximately 90% of the company's local drivers. On Monday, May 12th, the union voted to strike over the autonomous semi-trucks. A lot of it came down to the concerns of the trucks, job stability, and benefits. According to CBS News, Albertsons drivers have been working without a contract since Saturday and have been attempting to negotiate a fair contract with the company. They quoted, "Our drivers are frustrated," said Michael Perez. Aren't all drivers frustrated, first off? just yes. Putting that out there. An assistant business representative for the local 745 said, basically, they're not listening to their voice. Again, put a pin in this. No one listens to their driver's voices. That's the most common thing we hear. All right, I take that back. There are some people doing it, not enough. The truck drivers are also pushing for job security at Albertsons management work to include language in their worker contracts that would allow the company to use driverless trucks without jeopardizing jobs. The push is only highlights of the autonomous trucks concerns being held by the local drivers. When you take the driver out of it, they quoted on this, when you take the driver out of it, you take the professional out of it, and you just leave it in the hands of a computer or something we're not fans of. Now, we talked about this in Matt's with Louis, and one of the things Louis had brought up, and I haven't heard it brought up enough when we're talking about autonomous trucks, you hear about the job security and all that stuff for the drivers, but what you don't hear about is we're in a day where things get hacked. Now you're going to have an 80,000 pound vehicle driving down the street, going to your local grocery store, and what happens when that gets hacked?
Yeah, I mean, that's true.
It's like Need for Speed, the trucking edition.
I mean, I think there is a possibility. I don't think it's going to be. I'm not as concerned. I'm concerned of instances of that, but I'm not like super concerned about like. I mean, because it's like the same thing with the power grid. Like, sure, that is a possibility. Has it happened? No. Is there an absurd amount of things in place to stop it from happening? Yes. And at that point, then like none of the other conversations really even matter. I guess at that point, if our supply chain was autonomous, then it wouldn't really matter if it got hacked anyway, because we'd all have way bigger problems. Now, what I will say is my hot take that I came up with all by myself is we constantly talk about, speaking of listening to drivers, we talk about how the industry always wants to just put a Band-Aid on things, right? Instead of fixing the actual problem. When you see it that way, and you see it's actually at a point to where drivers are striking due to autonomous trucks, kind of like the Actors Guild and the Writers Guild did a couple years ago for AI writing scripts. Well, now you have drivers doing it for autonomous trucks, but it's like we put so many Band-Aids on so many things that instead of addressing the issues, we are literally at the point of trying to get rid of the drivers as a Band-Aid.
I mean, they also had an idea about taking orphans out of orphanages and putting them in trucks when they were aging out. So I think they're running out of wells to go to.
But like the thing is you now aren't you're instead of putting a Band-Aid on the symptoms, you're going to go out of your way to eliminate the patient before you eliminate the problem. I mean, because you think about it, the whole thing is, I mean, it's telling that it's a union, regardless of how you feel about unions. So the whole thing is about labor. And it's about labor. So they're literally in calling those things symptoms. Either you have to view the worker as a disease in that metaphor, or they are eliminating the patient and replacing it with a robot so they don't ever have to address the problems. What would solve the problem? If there wasn't a person here who had to get paid.
Could you imagine if people took like the Uber Freight approach of getting in there at a low cost to put these driverless trucks out there, and then after all the drivers have been replaced, all of a sudden all the fees and stuff go up? It's like a subscription model for the autonomous trucks.
Well, yeah. I mean, that's the same way with anything. I mean, like you look at any subscription service, look at like streaming services, any sort of like subscription service like that, anything like that where they control like the medium or the service. Yeah, that's what's going to happen. And the worst part is you're going to be in a position to where you have to use that. And then not only on top of that, they're going to find ways to justify it by, oh, here is a leap in technology. In order for us to be able to support this, you're going to have to pay more. It's not because we're being stingy. It's because the product's better.
Yeah, no, absolutely. So we're going to switch gears a little bit.
Hold on, real quick, though. Do you think there's going to be some sort of setup in that, if that is the case, where like there's password sharing between carriers or shippers, I guess? Anyway, sorry.
Hours of service wouldn't come in question anymore.
Hey.
So, all right. The next one I pulled up on CDLLife was troopers in 5 states partnered for a move over enhanced enforcement operation. Now, this one spoke to me when I was glancing over the news, because being a driver that was raised by a driver, I was taught if there was a driver on the side of the road and needed help, number one, you slow down and move over. But if you're not going to do that, then at least, stop as well and check on them, try to help. Now, we see less of the stopping and helping, and even more so less of the slow down and move over. I feel strongly about that one. As someone that's had to get out on the side of the road and address a mechanical concern on my truck, trying to dodge traffic because they're not slowing down and moving over out of the shoulder lane, it's a hazard. And people are very unaware of it. So the troopers in 5 states partnered for this move over enforcement. State police are partnering for an enhanced traffic enforcement detail targeting drivers who fail to move over and slow down for emergency vehicles. The traffic detail is taking place from 6 a.m. to 6 p.m. on Wednesday, May 14th. Participating law enforcement agencies include the Arkansas State Police, Texas Department of Public Safety, Louisiana State Police, New Mexico State Police, and Oklahoma Highway Patrol. Kudos to those guys for doing this. During the single-day operation, the troopers increased patrols to enforce the state's move-over laws. In Arkansas, drivers are required to move over and slow down for emergency vehicles or stalled out vehicles. Arkansas Department of Transportation vehicles, utility vehicles, tow vehicles, and authorized vehicles displaying, flashing, revolving, or rotating lights in blue, red, amber, white, or green. Each state has a variation of this. I know in Illinois, you had to slow down and move over. If it isn't possible to move over, drivers should exercise caution and reduce their speed. So in Arkansas, I guess that's the rule. If you can't move over, slow down and reduce your speed. You had to do that in any regard. In Illinois, actually, you would find the troopers sitting on the shoulder. No one pulled over, just having their lights on. And for everyone that didn't slow down and move over, there'd be another squad car waiting for you up ahead and get you. It actually, when I was reading this the first time, it threw me back to when I first got my driver's license up in Illinois. I actually commended the officer for the ticket I got. It was genius. There was this Camaro driving down 294 flying. There was cars behind it. It was weaving in and out of traffic, and people just followed suit. I was one of them. It was before my CDL, and I knew better. Later on, maybe about half a mile down the road, there was a line of troopers, and they just all zigged out, pulled over each one of the cars following it. And then that first car, the green Camaro, dropped back and threw on lights. It was an undercover.
That, sorry, I got distracted while you're telling the story, which I hope everybody watching loved, but I got stuck on one thing. They're doing that. But you know what? I can't find the results for anywhere. In all of the news that's came out, the past few months, we covered when the FMCSA was debating whether or not to, when they were studying the effectiveness of roadside hazard triangles for trucks that are pulled over and whether or not they were effective. We never got the results of that and whether or not they were going to continue to make that a thing. But now you just have states that are enforcing this, which I think is great, and it's an important thing. It's really interesting to see the FMCSA and where they take certain things and what they choose to enforce and not and fight for.
You got to love your local lobbyist.
Yeah.
No, you don't. All right.
Yeah.
Anyway,
I do. I live right down the street from Owida.
Yeah, I love those guys.
I know.
All right. So next article, again on CDLLife, is CHP deploys 100 discrete Dodge Durango statewide to catch reckless drivers. I love this type of news. Being a driver on the road is already hazardous enough. Knowing that people are out there trying to make those roadways safer, those four-wheelers, the stuff they're doing, it seems like it gets overlooked and a lot of people put their attention on the truck drivers. So it's kind of nice when they turn it to reckless drivers in general. So the California Highway Patrol has deployed new vehicles that are specifically designed to blend in with other traffic in order to nab dangerous drivers. Now, I'm looking at these. Do they blend in? Sure, from a distance. But on each side of the door, in taking up almost the majority of the passenger and driver side door, is Highway Patrol. Now it's in a blacked out logo, but you still clearly see it.
I don't know. It's not. No. Oh, no. Nope. You scroll down. Some of them do, but that gray one, man,
with the reflection. Yeah.
No, it's almost like the opacity of it's halfway down. It's almost screened on there. So whereas normally it's that the white would pop.
Oh yeah.
And so the goal, and so I'm I don't, it's kind of muted. Yeah, it's not even white. That's gray font.
So as part of California Highways Patrol specially marked patrol vehicle program, the agency has deployed a fleet of 2024 Dodge Durango vehicles that still have the manufacturer's paint job rather than the distinct black and white color scheme of typical CHP cruisers. These things look sleek.
Yeah, that doesn't.
And there's 100 of those. So assume every Dodge Durango is about to write you a ticket if you're in California.
I'm just like, that's kind of where I'm like, there's a line. I understand, and obviously I want the roads to be a safer place too. I drive like a grandma. Personally, I use my turn signal, I wear my seatbelt, I do all of the things. But I don't love that. I just don't love it.
Maybe you'll like this. Some other features of these new vehicles are a V8 Hemi engine, concealed 360-degree emergency lighting, and a version of the CHP badge on the door, which we covered when we were talking about it. Blends in pretty well. From a distance, I'm pretty confident you wouldn't notice.
Yeah, I bet you those things are fast as hell, but I don't love the trying to hide it. It's like when who was it, Florida? I don't even remember. I think it was last year. Like somebody like came out with like a police bobtail and was like going around and like seeing what drivers were doing.
Tennessee and Georgia have a semi truck.
Yeah,
it's got cameras all around it, and it's meant to aim down and catch people that are texting on their phone.
Yeah, I'm just like, it's not,
I think it would be great if you got those tickets in the mail and it's like, courtesy of your local CDL driver, here's your ticket.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's the same thing with like the red light cameras and stuff. It's like, I get it, but like at the same time, I feel like there's also, that's a double-edged sword. Because if that works, then you start to have people who go after professional drivers. Or if a professional driver does something, they're going to get pulled over. And I know that that's not popular with the safety crowd, but like sometimes they just get you to get you, I guess is what I'm getting at. That's insane. I don't know. I just don't.
Speaking of, get you, we got to get to Behind the Desk with Tenstreet.
Do you want to grow your fleet but get buried by paperwork, slow hiring processes, and outdated systems, all while struggling to comply with changing safety regulations? Enter Tenstreet, the all-in-one platform that simplifies driver lifecycle management by bringing marketing, recruiting, onboarding, safety, and retention together in one place. Tenstreet coordinates and streamlines all your operations. Post to dozens of job boards at once. Speed time to hire with pre-population and AI to get more full applications faster. And manage the entire post-hire process, from cutting costs with online onboarding to integrating all safety data into one dashboard, to improving retention through thoughtful engagement. Whether you have one truck or 1,000, our expert team is here to help. Sleep soundly knowing you can pass an audit, attract needed drivers, and achieve your business goals. Join the thousands of carriers using Tenstreet. Sign up for a demo today.
At TAFS, we offer unparalleled trucking excellence and service. Enjoy exclusive benefits like fantastic tire discounts and 1-hour advances for quick cash. Recognized as the top factoring company in 2023, we're your partner for success. Access business loans, manage finances with ease through our client portal, F2 fuel card, and mobile app. Contact us now to see how we can help your trucking business thrive.
Well, now it's time to make sense. And we're talking about dispatch, disasters, the friction that can happen there. I actually had this conversation when I was in Vegas, and Paul, I think you and I have talked about it. One of the more enlightening moments for me was when I got out of the truck and into the office. I was like your typical driver getting out of the truck. I thought drivers could do no wrong. Everyone in the office was wrong. I was the champion of anything that the drivers told me, and I learned real quickly that there's two sides to the coin. Shortly after that enlightening moment, there was a day where I was leading an orientation class, bringing in new drivers, and I had listened to the drivers talking to each other about, okay, I got to break in my dispatcher and all of that fun jazz. And that's a common mentality. Hey, I got to break this person in, make them, do things the way I want to do it. I happened to be, for whatever reason, I was going up to the dispatch floor, and I was meeting up with one of my dispatch buddies to hand him the list of the drivers coming in so they could start pre-planning loads. And what did I hear when I went up there? The dispatcher saying, okay, got this new group of drivers, got to break them in. And it kind of tells you how it starts out. That relationship starts out rocky. You got two people coming in there. It becomes a contest, a headbutting contest, if you would say. And that's not necessarily a recipe for success. So I took that moment and I started having conversations with the drivers and the dispatchers. Like, this should not be the mentality. I know just like there's good doctors, bad recruiters, bad recruiters. There's also good and bad dispatchers. But no one's going to have a chance, whether you're the driver or the dispatcher, to succeed if you're coming in right off the bat in a new relationship and you're trying to break someone in. I think it's, hey, I need to get to know you. I need to understand how you run, what you like, what you say you like versus what you actually like and dislike, and vice versa. I think that's more critical in the early stages. And a lot of people don't take into account for the drivers every time they switch a job, that promise like, oh, we guarantee you'll make whatever amount of dollars or up to whole nother.
I was about to say up to.
But
$70.
What people don't take into account is there's a get to know you period in there. So even if that company is completely above board and their numbers align with their marketing, there's still a get to know you period. That driver's not running optimally in the beginning. That dispatcher doesn't understand that driver and how they run to run them optimally. They're not hitting it for anywhere for several weeks to a couple months. So it's one of those things where dispatch is critical to the driver's success. And the driver is critical to the company's success. So you would think that these two groups would kind of mesh better. And it always perplexed me at how common that problem and mentality is between the drivers and dispatchers.
Well, and I think a lot of that is top down. And I think it depends because I've experienced a lot of companies in the way that they operate. On the back end, and talk to executives. And the interesting thing is like, if you talk to the executives at the company and get their perspective on driver issues and like how, their kind of temperature check on trucking, that mentality is typically going to trickle down. Like if it's a more business oriented company, you're going to find a lot of the power with dispatch. If it's a more driver culture focused centered company, I find a lot of times you either have a good balance or it's very driver heavy. And I think it depends on how much power dispatch is given and what mentality they're meant to have. Like, what are the goals that are given to dispatch? Because if your goal is just get the miles, doesn't matter. It's a job. They need to do it. That dispatcher isn't going to care. They're going to be like, hey, it is what it is. Sorry, you're having a bad time, man. But if there's a sense of accountability there, and I think sometimes it's also, I think the big thing is communication, which is always the big thing with everything. But like I've found in my time as a recruiter, nobody wants to own something that's not part of their job. So with recruiting, it's like, is it up to recruiting to figure out what operations needs, or is it operations' job to let recruiting know what they need and to update them accordingly? Like if a lane changes somehow, or if something fills up, or if the pay is going to change, like whose job is that? Do the recruiters need to find that? Does operations need to tell whose job it is? And a lot of times for a lot of companies, like there's a good solid delay in those things. They don't address those issues until someone shows up in orientation and it comes up.
Well, I think sometimes it gets convoluted. Everyone has their side of what part of that is broken. Mm-hmm. I'll take a thorns and roses moment right here. So one of the biggest, most memorable disconnects, disasters for me as a driver was I was hauling this load of refrigerators. Entire 53-foot trailer full of refrigerators. I was in Indiana. I get to this place. They have no docks. I didn't have a lift gate either. And I call my dispatcher. I'm like, they don't have docks. They don't have anything. How are these getting unloaded? And he's like, oh, they don't have docks. And I'm like, no, kind of just notified you of that. He's like, well, walk around the building. And so it's a strip mall looking building. And I walk into the show floor and I start talking to the sales guys. They think I'm about to buy one of their appliances. And I tell them I got a load of refrigerators. And they're like, okay, you can start unloading them by the front door. And I'm like, what? Mind you, I didn't have a lift gate. These are full-size refrigerators. So I call my dispatch. I'm like, they say that they want them by the front door. He's like, oh, well, we'll give you a lumper fee if you want to unload it. I'm like, these are refrigerators.
And you're not like the biggest guy.
No, not even close. I'm not Robert Bain walking around there like, yeah, I got this one on each side. No.
With like a 3.5 foot drop.
So they're like, well, we'll give you $20 a refrigerator. I'm like, that's not going to cover the new back surgery I need after I'm done doing this. And not to mention the damage claim, because I'm just going to drop these things off the back.
Are you going to fight me on workers' comp? Yeah. I mean, and I think that's a big part of it too. And that's kind of what sucks is because that it does always, as much as we've given crap to dispatch, it does always fall on them though. So regardless of whose job, like I was talking about earlier, it is to communicate that back and forth. When the driver finds out that something isn't something, it's going to be the dispatcher who they find out with.
Well, and drivers think that the dispatchers are the ones that are planning these. And in some cases, they are smaller operations, but more often you got a load planner or someone else that has handed this over to the dispatcher. And the dispatcher is just the person in between. If dispatching is done right, though, here's the most memorable moment. And I actually got to live this at the Tenstreet conference. My old dispatcher, the last dispatcher I had when I was at a carrier, was in attendance, and now he's running their ops department. We connected right away, saw each other as soon as he walked in the door. It was like old times all over again. He was impressed at where I'm sitting. I was impressed at where he's sitting. We started going down memory lane. We even had somebody reach out and join the conversation and like, so what kind of driver was Charles? And he's like, the best. That's why I picked him to get out of the truck. I'm like, that was a good answer. But like, if you did do it right, we've been linked up on social media since I've left, got out of the truck. It can be done right, and it can be memorable for that driver. That's a relationship. That is a common stress point. So if you're a dispatcher listening to this, take that to heart. That driver's having a problem when they're reaching out to you. It might not seem like a big problem to you on the plethora of problems that you're dealing with, but to that one driver, that one small problem is a big problem. And if you solve it or support them during it, you can make a relationship that lasts years. And you never know. Trucking is very big, but it's also very small.
So I have a theory. I don't know. I have never met him. I'm trying to figure out how nice of a guy he is and how willing he would be to be mean. Does he say that you were the best and that's why he invited you to get out of the truck because he thought you were brilliant, could do a lot of cool stuff? Or was he like, if I had to take anybody off my board, it's going to be this guy?
No. Now, if you were talking about Friday dispatch board, hey, I'll be the first guy. Hey, I believe in owning your shit. So yeah. I knew Fridays was the one day this particular carrier would always ask you, because we were local at that point, would ask you to stick around for a 14-hour day. And a lot of times that 14 would turn into that one exception day where you can work longer.
Mm-hmm.
So I purposely made sure, like, come lunchtime, hey, my truck's due for Blue Beacon visit. And on Fridays, if you're a local driver, that Blue Beacon line is long. I killed my hours, didn't have time. I made sure my Fridays ended early. He was smart enough to start sending me on those exception days on Mondays or Tuesdays after that.
Mm-hmm.
But it came down to getting to know one another. Like, he knew I didn't want to do that. I had a family. I did not want to be working extra 2 hours on a Friday. But if he hit me up on a Monday, Tuesday, or Wednesday, I didn't care. Like, use me. I want the hours. So well, it's that get to know you.
I think some of the best buddy comedies I've ever seen in my life have been relationships that actually exist between dispatchers and drivers that see each other as humans. It's fantastic. And like, I've seen that relationship last past someone moving to another company more often than I've seen it from any other combination of two people who work together in any capacity in trucking.
Well, shout out to Mo, because Mo was awesome.
Yep.
I do have switching gears for us, though.
I was about to say, if you have a terrible dispatcher, what do you do about it?
Well, hey, Bubba.
Yeah. We talked to them at BCS.
Yeah.
You can just, like, it sounds like if you're an owner operator, it sounds ideal. But also, like, if you just don't want to deal with somebody, that sounds like that could do the job.
So I pulled up their website. I went to bubba.ai. Hey Bubba is a AI dispatcher. We met them at the BCS, had a great conversation. I think there's something there. You know, when you think about some of the pain points for drivers, it's nights and weekends dispatch. You get somebody that's not familiar with the truck, not familiar with you, dealing with you when you're at your most vulnerable, you're tired, you're trying to get to sleep, and you have an issue. And here's this person that is essentially by design a Band-Aid in a system full of Band-Aids. Oh, Hey Bubba's solution to this was your true voice dispatcher. It's 24/7 AI dispatch. They have on their website best loads, autopilot, voice tech, hassle free. And there's a part of me that's like, you know, they might have something here. Usually when it comes to the AI, I'm a little apprehensive because I like the people element. But at 2:00 in the morning, when I'm just trying to get a prompt response and not wait for someone to talk to 100 different people or get a load, this seems pretty good.
Yeah. Or, if it's 2 PM because you drove all night. Yeah.
So they were going to come on the show because it was a perfect episode, but I do have an email from them and I want to kind of highlight a little bit. So this came from their founder, Tappan. He's the founder of Hey Bubba, an agent AI company that acts as an AI dispatcher for owner operators and small fleets. Drivers can talk to Bubba in any language, and Bubba can find loads, negotiate with brokers, shippers, book loads, verify rate cons, make shipper appointments, and address driver concerns. They were launching the company and products at the MATS. They were there to do a press release. They were at BCS. We got to have them on the show. It was pretty entertaining and informative, I will say, because I had some questions as a former driver, like, well, what happens if I have this issue? And well, can they rate the driver? Like, we know if you're a dispatcher watching this, certain drivers run certain ways. You got your truck stop heroes, and then you got your people that only stop at a truck stop when they need fuel or to sleep. Can Bubba figure that out when they're booking a load? So if you don't give a just-in-time load to the guy that's playing truck stop hooky all day. And he's like, not yet, but it's constantly evolving and growing. And it's like all tech. It's constantly going to, hopefully getting better. If it gets worse, then it's an iPhone. Yep, I did that.
Doesn't mean it's right. Anyway, keep going.
But I did thoroughly enjoy the conversation that they were open to those comments and those critiques, and the idea of an AI dispatcher being used to solve the problems that historically have been fixed with nights and weekends dispatch, an overseas office out of the Ukraine that picks up the phones, or some office out of the Philippines, and the driver's already mad. Now they have to explain this entire situation to somebody that doesn't know anything about the company. They're just a Band-Aid. I've been there. It absolutely sucks.
Well, it sounds like you'd spend a lot less time stuck on the phone too. So you would have more time to do the things you need to do or actually rest when you're not driving.
Well, I mean, when you have an issue, who doesn't want to talk to T-Mobile tech support?
Right. But no, that's crazy. Autonomous trucks replacing the driver, and then the next thing is the dispatcher. Well, the dispatcher's already happening. And so it's like just all those symptoms.
If you're watching this, can you leave in the comments, which would you like to see replaced first? The driver with autonomous trucks or the dispatcher with Hey Bubba?
All right. Well, we do have to finish. Last hot take: by 2060, if there's anything left to run, I feel like at that point, to own a trucking company, all you would need is a bunch of AI, electric, autonomous capital, and an MC number, and you have a trucking company. Cool. Maybe a tech guy. But even then,
definitely need IT. If you have autonomous trucks and AI dispatchers, you're definitely going to need IT.
Actually, probably not, because there's a lot of companies now that'll just do your IT for you.
Fractional IT specialist.
They're awesome. But anyway, yeah. But that is
Geek Squad's about to have a high volume stock increase after this show.
Maybe Best Buy will make a full on comeback instead of kind of on the life support ish type thing they got going on. So, but yeah, it is time we are out of time. I actually think there's more to dive into this than we did. So I think we could.
Absolutely.
I think at some point we should probably just bring Hey Bubba on and maybe touch on this.
I would like to bring Hey Bubba on with a couple dispatchers at the same time.
Yeah.
I think it's time the dispatchers feel the same job insecurity that the rest of us are feeling out there.
Yep. So,
But until next time, thanks for tuning in to Sense per Mile. I'm your host, Charles Gracie.
and I'm your co-host, Paul Gibson. See you next time.